without any further ado, please allow me to introduce and please welcome Scott Lawrence. Thank you.
Hi. Cheers. I don't need that mic, I've got a lapel mic. So, thanks everybody for coming, because this is the first time I've done an event. So it really means a lot to me that so many people have come. In response to, I suppose one of the biggest things that a student hypnotherapist or a hypnotherapist in general would like to see is an actual sticky beak into a real life demonstration session and what I do. One of the things we'd like to talk to somebody about at the end of the night is we'd like to pick someone who's eager to see a client for us as well. That we've basically, to introduce ourselves, Lawrence Hypnotherapy. When I say we, that's my fiancée Jess and myself as well. So that's us, that's Lawrence Hypnotherapy. We've got as many clients coming to us as what we can see, so we'd like to talk to somebody at the end of the night who's interested in just for one time once to start with, and then possibly to grow into to more sessions as we... That's right. We can have a chat, that's all right. So who am I? A lot of people in the room I recognise. I suppose some of you I haven't seen before. That's all right, I recognise you. My name's Scott Lawrence. I studied at the Academy in 2009 as a diploma graduate, and so what I've done is I've gone out into the world learning how to do it, and we've developed this system for how to get people off cigarettes. And so with this system, you'll basically find everything that you need in the manuals. At the back of the manuals, for anybody who doesn't have a perfect memory, for everything that's said tonight, I've actually got a script at the back of the manual as to what I actually say in the sessions as well. I do see between 20 to 40 clients per week. When I'm teaching, it's not so much the 40, more the 20. But when I'm not teaching, I will see somewhere around the 40 clients in a week. And that's why we're wanting to get somebody in at some point to see clients for us as well. So it's a system. We've been using the same system. I specialise in the quit smoking more than any other type of hypnotherapy. I've seen so many smoking clients, and what tended to happen is that we fell into a bit of a routine that almost everybody seemed to be quitting cigarettes by the end of the first session. And it's because of the context, because of the framework that we have. I suppose as they say at the Academy, that you've got to go with your client as well, that you've got to listen. But we find that having a framework, it actually helps you to go with your client. It helps you to listen to the client, to have something to come back to as well. Especially for anybody who hasn't seen a smoking client, or who hasn't seen a smoking client yet. Yep. So you'd like to have a framework in which then you can basically start as if you've already seen clients. I've taught at the Cert for Small Business Development, which was here. I was also actually featured on the Fox 101.9 with Andy Lee. So we all know Hamish and Andy. So I was on the radio for 3 days with Andy Lee actually. And has anyone heard of Cackling Jack? He's the friend or the protege to Hamish and Andy. I hypnotised Cackling Jack. He had a problem where he kept hitting the snooze button. So he came to me, we recorded a bit of the session and that played on the radio as well. So that was really good. That was a bit of a highlight for us as well. We developed the 6 Trigger Smoking Program, which is this tonight, so that's what we're doing. So tonight's goals, what are you here for? To demonstrate a standard session, and so that's the main reason we're really here. Rather than to talk the theory about it, we're going to do one. What you'll find, same as like with the script that I have at the back, I do a lot of talking with the client. I let them talk, but I explain a lot of stuff. In explaining that stuff, I find that I hit on all of those 6 triggers, and that seems to be what's doing it. That's what's getting people off the cigarettes. We'd like to see, for you, to see yourselves as quit smoking experts. So not just as, I suppose, hypnotherapists, but hypnotherapist, and you're also going to be quit smoking experts after tonight. That's our prediction. To give you a powerful framework so that you know that you've got this framework to understand how is your client going. So if your client doesn't quit on the first session, why haven't they quit on the first session? We want you to ask questions. What we find with the program that we have is the only way that we know how many people are quitting is that we do follow up. And we do, with our program, we've got the 2 sessions of hypnotherapy, then there's a 2-disc CD set that we give, and then what we do is that we give them a call once a week for a month. And with that once a week for a month, we know that it's been at least 6 weeks that our clients have been off smoking. Because how else do you know if your clients are smoking? One of the biggest fears that a client seems to have when they call you is, are you going to be one of those hypnotherapists that sees them once and then they never talk to again? They tend to be lazy. If they don't quit, they blame you. So the idea is that just having that framework, having that accountability where you do check up on them, not to be afraid of checking up on them, but the checking up itself helps create your success as well. Yep. To grow your client base, how is this tonight going to help you grow your client base? So one main part is that people have said they don't know how to exactly start. They feel that they don't have the tools yet to help a person quit smoking. Another part is reputation, that the more people you do get off cigarettes, the bigger your client base can become. The training materials, so what we've given you. All training materials that we've given you have been modified. Generally, I'll be sitting here and I'll have a client and I'll have a clipboard that I've got. Cheers. I'd be sitting here with my client and I'd be drawing things, and if I did that, you wouldn't be able to see, or not everybody would be able to see what I'm doing. So that's why we've modified everything that I'd normally be drawing will appear up on the screen. So my client file has been replaced with the workbooks that you have. So that generally there's a mail out that I give them, there's a questionnaire that I post to them as well. That's also all in the workbooks for you. There's a mail out. It's what I call it like a confirmation of appointment. It's about 2 pages. It's in the back. I think it's the last 2 pages. I send them that. It just seems to be much more of a professional thing the more contacts you have with them before they come. So they receive either an email of that or they receive it in the post. And it just makes them feel better about where they're coming to.
I have been doing that, mailing out their homework, so to speak,
Yep.
and they never bring it in. I ask them when I confirm their appointment to bring it in,
Yep.
their quit smoking plan, etc. So is there something that I'm doing wrong, or do you think they're just lazy?
What are you sending them?
I'm sending them a mail out with
Yep.
a quit smoking plan
Yeah.
and what to do before they come in and see me.
And they don't bring it with them?
No.
And you've asked them to bring it in?
Yeah. I get 1 in 10, maybe.
Okay, I mean, everyone does bring mine, but it's that I say to them that there's a questionnaire, and I'd like you to, I've got a mic already, that's okay. But I just say to them that there's a questionnaire that I'm going to post to you as well. I'd like you to fill it out and bring it with you on the day. They tend to bring it, and it's the same one that I've got in there. Yep, sorry if you just wanted to pass the...
Sorry, with the questionnaire, so you get them to fill it out on the day. Would you not think it might be a more indication of how committed they are if you ask them to respond to it before the appointment?
So what I do is I get them to fill it out at home and to
Yes.
bring it on the day.
Yes.
So they have it filled out before they see me.
Yes. But you don't think that, because for example, I would think that if they didn't bring it on the day, doesn't that sort of indicate to you that they're not actually as committed to quitting smoking as you'd hope they'd be?
I haven't had someone not bring it.
Okay.
If their printer's broken, they'll tell me in advance. I've had people call me in advance and say that for some reason they haven't been able to do it.
Yes,
Or they've
yes.
said, I emailed it back to you.
Yes.
They've said, I sent you an email. Did you see it? And they'll
Yeah.
say, yep. Then I'll print it.
Okay.
Or if I've read it in advance, if I'm that proactive,
Yes.
I'll know before they've come. But they have either sent me an email or they've brought it with them.
Okay. And do you have a screening process per se to so you get an indication of how actually really ready they are to quit?
No.
No. Okay. No, I'm just asking. I just because some people will say they want to quit and then actually not want to quit. They might have a secondary gain to the
Yep.
whole process and therefore may not actually achieve the results.
Okay. Do you have an example of a secondary gain, just for...
Yeah, for example, social confidence, because we know that
Oh, sorry, a gain for smoking.
secondary gain
Yep.
for smoking. So fear of gaining weight. So they use it as a weight loss tool, or social connectedness within their work environment. They might
Yep.
be a part of. So there is some gain that they're getting.
Yep.
From actually what they perceive, even though it's an illusion, it's a
Yep.
secondary gain they perceive, which may stop them from actually wanting to move entirely forward with it.
Absolutely. Everyone's aware of parts therapy.
Yeah.
I use that. for exactly that reason. So that's going to be addressed.
Okay.
I'd like to, though, leave it for the part.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it will.
Okay, great.
That's a good preempt for everybody to look for that when the parts therapy
Great.
comes.
All right, thank you.
I want to ask you guys some questions just to get you talking, to see just are we all sort of together on the same page to start with. A client says that they're addicted to smoking. What do they mean? What do they mean addicted? They're coming to you for what? Yep. Sorry, if you're all right. Oh.
They have no control over what they're doing. The smoking's taking over their complete lives.
Okay. Do they mean the nicotine addiction? Or do they mean the psychological addiction? A habit? Yep. Sorry, if you just wanted to pass that back, just for the microphone.
It's a habit.
Yep, so that's one of the 6 parts as well. So did you have the same thing? Yep.
They can't stop.
They can't stop. Sorry, Jess. That's right. It's going to be a very active thing. So basically, so they can't stop. Why can't they just stop?
Because they're addicted.
Because they're addicted. So basically, that's what people will tell you with the cigarettes. I'm addicted. Nobody's really going to give you a very useful definition. No client's really going to give you a useful definition of exactly what's going on with them. If we say, is it the nicotine part? Is it the psychological part? Is it habit? Is it this? Some people say that if it's, it's habit, they might have done some forethought, but generally then they haven't. They've lumped everything together in one pile. What about patches? One person smokes 40 cigarettes a day, another smokes 10 per day. They both go to the chemist for patches. Will both clients get the same result? Why not? Yep, sorry. Because each person's different. That's all right, I'll just repeat. That's fine. Another reason, perhaps it's 40 cigarettes and 10 cigarettes. The person who's smoking 10 cigarettes a day, why are they smoking the 10 cigarettes?
And one might be an addiction.
So out of habit and addiction. So what would patches do for habit? Nothing. Yep, because it has nothing to do, patches are to do with the nicotine. If we're talking about habit, well then you don't have a habit patch. Alan Carr, has everyone heard of Alan Carr?
Yes.
Yep, so if you see clients, you're going to hear that name. He's basically the world's leading, I suppose, quit smoking expert. Just as an example, a client says they've read the book, it worked for 4 months. When they read it again, it stopped working. What do they mean it stopped working? What happened? Is it that... Yep.
They let it stop working. They don't want it to work anymore, so they're blaming the book for their inability to stop smoking.
Exactly, so that's a really key point. The word it stopped working. They started smoking again, which is the main part. So why are they blaming the book? Did the book change between the first and the second reading? Or did something change with the individual? So their language itself of it stopped working, it's not a very helpful sentence. What they could say is that the first time I read the book, I stopped smoking. The second time I read the book, I didn't stop smoking. And that will give you more of a clue as to what's happening. But never let people externalize the blame to a book, because the book itself, on the first and second read, as we know, cannot change. So the real reason they didn't quit, basically it was themselves. Stress and tension. One person has an argument with their partner, then they have a cigarette. Can they go outside and have a patch, or? Why did they have the cigarette? Yep. Yep, so it could be a little bit of both, to reduce the tension and the habit. What can be done here to help? Can patches, Champex or Zyban help? Have we all heard of Champex? Yep, there's a bit of a story behind it. Basically, it wasn't invented as a quit smoking drug. From what I've heard, it was invented for depression. And then people who were taking Champex, some of them stopped smoking, and they had what they were calling something like a 50% quit rate. It's then been marketed as a quit smoking drug. What I hear from clients, you can imagine that I see the clients that have had the Champex where they haven't stopped smoking, or they've stopped smoking but they've started again after the Champex. What everyone seems to say to me is that I had stomach aches and nightmares. Yep. So some people don't even, a lot of people don't even go the whole length of the course of the Champex because the side effects just throw them about so much.
It made me feel really, really sick. Actually.
Yep, really sick.
Yeah, and that's why I stopped. I just felt so sick, and I'm like, I'm not going to have another one of those.
Exactly. Sorry. If you want to.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention this because I think this is really important, that a lot of clients seem to come back with terrible things such as not only nightmares but so vivid that one client thought, he woke up and he just told his wife to take him to the police station because he really thought he murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Another client had hallucinations while he was driving.
Very
so
dangerous.
Things at him, and so it's actually quite a dangerous.
Quite a risk.
Yeah.
I've never recommended to anybody to take it. I mean, I'm not sure myself I understand enough about it to, plus not being trained in medicine.
Yeah.
But the things I've heard from people, that not everybody will say that, but there's a lot of people who will give extreme...
Big bunch of them.
There's a big bunch of them, and you never know who exactly it'll be. Drinking, alcohol we're talking about. What's the deal with alcohol and cigarettes? Is it harder to not drink? Sorry, to not smoke while you're drinking?
It's associated with drinking.
Yep.
That's the problem.
So what I like to say is that it's not necessarily that it's harder, but it's a very different challenge, and you don't beat the not smoking while drinking with the same technique that you use for something else. And so we use basically a different technique for that one. Is it more difficult? What difference does it make? Let's say, does drinking make a person smoke? We know there's a lot of non-smokers who will drink, and it doesn't make them smoke. So there's something about it that it doesn't make a non-smoker smoke, but it seems to be a trigger for someone who's already smoking. And that's another thing. We're going to cover all of this in the actual demonstration. Most of this stuff is going to really come into clarity when we actually do a demonstration. At the moment, really what I'm doing is preempting what's going to happen in the session. What's your excuse? What do you call a smoker who only smokes socially? A smoker. Absolutely, that's what I call them. They are a smoker. There's these two parts of this excuse. One is that I'm not buying any cigarettes, I'm just smoking what I've got left, plus my friends. OPs is apparently a brand, other people's. The other part, I'm not smoking any, but I'll just keep a packet just in case I have a craving later. You can't really tolerate that type of logic because it's not going to lead anywhere good. You put these two parts together and you've got buying and smoking. They go together. Shall we begin? This is where I work. So I'm introducing you to my clinic. That's my big comfortable chair. It makes adults look about that big. Maybe like they come up to there or so. We've got the counselling table where there's two chairs. The client sits there and I sit on the other side of the table, and we find it to be a valuable tool to halfway through, once we've done the counselling stuff, to get them to stand up and change seats. It's an indication of your control as a therapist, plus that the therapy is about to start.
Good.
Hi.
Hi,
I'm Scott.
I'm Angie.
Angie? Yep. The microphone's working?
Yes.
Yep. So you'd love to get rid of the cigarettes today?
I would.
Yep. So welcome to my clinic. So at this point, we talk for a couple of minutes. It's really important to make sure you get a little bit of friendly rapport at the beginning, because there's no point in just jumping straight in. After seeing so many clients a day, it tends to form into a bit of a formula. Have you had a busy week?
Yeah, it has been.
Yep. So what have you been up to?
Working a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. What do you do?
I work at a youth refuge.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so it's been pretty busy.
So it's quite a dynamic role.
Yeah, it is.
I suppose like the responsibilities the psychology of it, understanding people.
Yeah, and the crises that are always coming up with young people, but it's good.
Exactly.
Keeps you on your toes.
You've brought the questionnaire with you today?
Yes, I have.
Yep, so I'll just read it. This usually only takes me a couple of minutes just to look through the main parts. I like to look at how many cigarettes per week.
I'm the drinking social smoker, so
Yep.
as soon as I have a drink, I need to have basically a pack of smokes. So I'm a binge smoker.
A binge smoker.
Yeah, so
And
if I drink, it can easily be a pack of smokes in one night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of the time, you tend not to smoke as much?
Yeah.
But
There's
do
odd occasions, like stressed out at work, or if I'm speaking with a client at work and they're smoking, where I get the craving, and sometimes I'll cave in and have one.
Yeah.
But usually it's if I drink, or if I'm with certain girlfriends that smoke, I'll go with a packet of cigarettes because I know I'll smoke that packet of cigarettes.
Okay, excellent.
I know, awful.
So what makes today a time that you'd really like to get rid of the cigarettes?
Because it's gross and it stinks and it's so expensive and it's not good for your health and
Exactly.
yeah,
And the
don't
health.
need to be doing it anymore.
Exactly, the health is really important.
Yeah.
So the next part, we talk about the 6 triggers. So the idea is there isn't one trigger to smoking, there's 6 triggers. And it just makes so much more sense when we look at it that way. Basically, to group it all together really isn't a helpful idea, but to look at it in its 6 separate parts is going to make complete sense at the end of this. The first part, physical nicotine levels. The habitual behaviours, the stress and tension, the fantasy cigarette, too much energy and not enough energy. And I'm going to go through each of these slowly for you, one by one. So this is a preempt of what we're about to go through. So the first one, basically physical nicotine levels. As we say that every 2 to 3 hours of not smoking, the nicotine starts to run low from the body. And the body is its own little homeostasis, or its own sort of environment. It wants to normalise its regular chemical levels. And so that, as they say that there's no such thing as one sick organ, there has to be at least 2. If one organ is underactive, another has to be overactive. So we're talking about really the relationship between the parts. You've got nicotine in there. If you suddenly take the nicotine away, the body says, what's happened to my regular chemical levels? What's happening on with my whole system I had? I started to memorise a bit of a system of how my chemicals are happening. So it makes sense it's going to start to talk. There's only one cure to physical nicotine addiction. Don't have nicotine for at least 3 days. There is no other cure. That's basically it. So what I get you to do is, have you had any cigarettes today?
No.
No?
I'm wanting one right now. And I haven't had any today.
That's all right. With this calendar, I get you to tick each day as you go. The idea is to tick each day without cigarettes. If somebody had had a cigarette today, I'd draw a line halfway between the one and say, well, tomorrow when you wake, I'd like for you to tick the second half of day 1 to say that you've gone from now all the way to the end of the day, to sleep, then to wake again. So then I'd like you to keep ticking each day as you go. And then the good news with that nicotine addiction is that by the time you get to day 3, all of that nicotine is actually, almost all of the nicotine has left the body. That's when physical addiction ends. And that's it, that's nicotine addiction. That part's pretty simple.
Yeah.
The rest of it's where really the smoking seems to come from. Basically, I mean, caffeine can be said to be addictive. Sugar can be said to be addictive. Nicotine as well. If a person stops smoking for a week and then they start again, they've cured the nicotine addiction through the cure, which is don't have nicotine for up to 3 days. So what's happened? It has to have come from a different trigger.
Yeah.
If you're happy to come back in 7 days, because with this 2-session program, when you come back in day 7, the body has had 4 additional days to learn how not to be addicted to the cigarettes. So you've got all of those where the physical part has finished. So when we say what is addiction, the physical part is 3 days of not having nicotine, and we help you with that. The CD sets, I'll talk more about these in depth later. The CD sets help you get past the first 3 days. The next part, habit. Habit's not really the part that makes you smoke, but it's the part that reminds you when to. So let's say by the time you've got one in your hand, if you could say, should I smoke this or should I not smoke this, the habit part's already finished because you've become conscious that it is a cigarette. Yeah. So let's say that there's no unconscious way, or there's no habit way for you to go to the shops and buy a packet of cigarettes without at least having some conscious involvement because there's too many steps involved. You could scratch your head, you could do all sorts of things while drinking. You could slip in more cigarettes unconsciously, but there is no way to buy them without some conscious involvement. Basically, there's not one habit to smoking. There can be hundreds of little tiny habits, and each one could be, well, perhaps the mornings with a cup of tea or coffee, after meals, while drinking, which you were saying was yours.
Yeah.
Work breaks, before bed, driving or socialising. There could be more as well. But none of these habits actually have anything to do with each other. All a habit is, it's a map in the head. With each one of these maps, they're a separate map. So the while drinking, if you cure the socialising, the driving, the before bed, the work breaks, you haven't necessarily cured the while drinking. So you're going to have to basically do each one at least once.
Okay.
So let's say in this month, we'd like you to go 31 days without the cigarettes. As you keep ticking the days, we know that in 31 days, you've had, 31 times of waking up without a cigarette. Is there anything about your 30 seconds time waking up without cigarettes, without smoking, that can make you smoke?
Well, if I went out.
Yep,
Yeah.
so there'd have to be a difference. So as far as the habit part itself, there's nothing about just purely waking up on the 32nd day
No.
after you've gone 31 days. It would have to be an external factor, which is from the other. So habit, even though habit is all unconscious, by the time you're conscious of the decision, should I have it or not have it, there can be pressure on that decision, but that pressure comes from the other triggers, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
You've gone, let's say, you've had 100 meals in that month. So with 100 meals, is there anything about your 101st meal that could make you smoke? Nothing, basically.
Yeah.
So it's really, you've beaten every single trigger. You've had perhaps alcohol every single night. You've had 100 nights of alcohol without cigarettes. Is there anything about your 101st night with drinking that could make you smoke?
No.
It's basically to do with, if you don't have a map in the head for something, you start to produce a map in the head. One part that I like to talk about is extreme positive events and extreme negative events, or what I like to call the carrot and the stick. So let's say that a funeral that can be an extreme negative event. Depending how you like the person.
Yeah.
So what can happen, let's say you've never been to a funeral before and you go to one of somebody who's very close to you. You don't have a map in the head for exactly what to do. So your nervous system starts reaching out for whatever's going to offer it comfort. But however, let's say that you went to 1,000 funerals, 1,000 days in a row, and they were all people close to you somehow. You had 1,000, perhaps they're Facebook friends, and you get to the end of that 1,000th funeral. Is there anything about your 1,001st funeral that could make you smoke? So it's all to do with how much repetition.
Yeah.
So the habit really is just change it, and it starts to become normal. So it's not that drinking is more difficult, it's just that it's not the same challenge. You go, I've gone this whole week without cigarettes, then I had a glass of wine. Well, if you've had 100 nights of a glass of wine in a row, there's nothing about the glass of wine itself, of habit, that can make you smoke. It would have to come from the pressure or from those other triggers. So that makes sense?
Kind of.
Kind of?
Yeah.
Do you have a question about how that works?
Well, when you're saying, how do I get to the 100 nights of having wine without a cigarette, though?
We show you, that's basically the hypnotherapy.
Okay.
So the idea is to know that if you go all of these days without cigarettes, what is it, it's the 22nd of November?
Yeah.
You go a whole month without, what you haven't had is a New Year's yet.
Yeah.
So you've gone that whole month without cigarettes, and then New Year's happens, and you still haven't had your first New Year's. Can you imagine, like, your third New Year's would be easy? So there's nothing about your third New Year's that can make you smoke if you've gone 3 years without cigarettes. But your first New Year's, you still haven't beaten that. So each habit has to be beaten separately.
Okay.
So the idea is that all you need to do for the drinking is to not have the cigarettes inside of that, the first time you drink, and then the second time you drink, and the third then becomes quite easy.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about strategies as how not to smoke while drinking. It basically is to do with the self-talk, and that's something that we'll get into soon.
Okay.
So that becomes the habit. But it's important to know that in that month you haven't beaten all of the triggers. Let's say somebody says that they've gone 6 years without a cigarette. They crash their car, then they start smoking. A client says, do I have to crash my car to beat the smoking trigger of crashing my car? No, you don't. However, you can imagine that if you never crash your car in the rest of your life, it's not going to occur in your life in order to make you smoke. Or let's say that you crash it 1,000 times. Is there anything about your 1,000th car crash that can make you smoke? It's still a terrible event. It's really expensive. You just crashed your car 1,000 days in a row. However, it's not terrible enough because you've got experience now as a professional car crasher to make you smoke. So the idea is that it's the repetition. Habit is, it's a map in the head which is caused purely by repetition. Now the whole trouble of it comes from the next two triggers. There's the carrot and the stick. The first one I like to talk about is the stick. Tension, the way I like to talk about it, it's resistance to change. Your conscious mind doesn't like to process as much as your subconscious. Your conscious mind, it's the thinker. It's the part that likes to think about logic. It likes to understand how things work. But it doesn't have the same capacity this part has. You remember when you first started to drive? That was a problem. It was tense because you didn't have the muscle memory. You didn't have the experience in how to drive. And then now you've been driving so long that it's not a tense problem. It's just an opportunity for you to show off your skills. Or let's say with youth working as well. Do you remember like the first day you ever did it? It was tension because you had no map in the head how to do it. Now you've done it for say quite some time.
Yeah.
You've now got a map in the head so that you find that it doesn't necessarily make you do things that it used to make you do.
Yeah.
That's tension. Tension is resistance to change. It's about not having a map in the head. It's not to do with how big or small the problem is. It's all to do with how familiar you are with the problem.
Yeah.
You can imagine people in the army. It's not to do with how different their challenge is. It's to do with how familiar their challenge is. If they've been doing it for 10 years, they don't really care, if that makes sense. They care, but they're not really fazed by it because they have experience. They have maps in the head here in the subconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Excellent. Need for a break. Panic reactions versus planned response. The idea, the need for a break. I've got this tense situation, it's building up and up, it's creating this uncomfortable energy, therefore I'd like to have a cigarette. The cigarette isn't what was curing the problem. You can still have the break. When a person says, well, it's my only break I get, I'm a mum. What do you expect from me because I have these kids? How am I going to have a break otherwise? How am I going to have a break otherwise without cigarettes? You have a break. There's another part of them that hasn't been resolved as to they want something, but that's not it. And so the way that we talk about what's that thing they want, the fantasy cigarette. What if I could say that if I could just slip out of here, everyone will let me slip out of here and have a cigarette, it's going to make me feel what? So good, so high, so happy. The anticipation basically is going to cure my craving for the cigarette that I had. It's going to make me feel great, feel high, and it's going to taste like chocolate, strawberry or vanilla. If you could actually just look at a smoker's face, just the expression when they pull the cigarette out of the packet, they put it in their mouth and they just can't light that thing fast enough. But then what happens, like say they're halfway through the cigarette, what's happened to that smoker's facial expression?
Well, it's not as exciting anymore. You've had that hit.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's happened? Why they've had the hit, then what's happening with the cigarette?
It's just not as important anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anticipation is better than smoking.
Yeah.
Which one sounds more attractive to a smoker? So option one, I'd like you to think about, in your imagination, you're just about to have a cigarette and think, how enticing could that sound?
Very right now.
Option two, you're halfway through a cigarette and how enticing could that sound?
Not as enticing as just about to have a cigarette.
Which is interesting because in your own words right now, you've actually just said that you prefer the option when you're not smoking.
Okay.
Which is, it's quite a realisation really, is that's the hinge, that all of anticipation stops once the cigarette has been lit. If I could ask you, how do you tickle a child?
With your hands?
The idea is you don't have to use your hands.
Okay.
It's about the anticipation. Let's say that with kids, you get closer and closer. How does the Jaws theme that goes the dun 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 dun. You're about this far away from them, and what's happened?
They're already laughing.
They're already laughing. So you haven't used your hands, unless you count whatever you're doing, but you tell them, I'm about to tickle you. Or you go and grab them, and what's happened? There's less.
Yeah.
So the same thing, it's the fantasy cigarette. What if all of that anticipation could be hung on something that you actually want? There's a reason for that anticipation. That's what we're going to talk about in the last two triggers. What about a person who's, they're in jail? How do they feel about freedom?
It's a fantasy, yeah.
It's up on this pedestal. It's
Yeah.
amazing. They're in for 5 years. They've got 4 years left. They've got 1 year left. They've got 6 months, 1 week left. They've got 1 hour left. They're just about to go outside. They walk outside and where's the band? Where's the parade? What's going on? This is a big day in my life. How do they feel?
You'd still feel good because you're out.
You'd feel good.
Yeah.
like a cigarette. Has it lived up to their expectations?
I don't know why you were saying that. I was just thinking, I'm going
Yeah.
out tomorrow night, and that's been the build-up for me with the cigarettes because I don't buy smokes unless I go out. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like I'm like 5 o'clock tomorrow. I get to go to the newsagents and get
Yeah.
a pack of cigarettes.
So imagine yourself
like
halfway
that.
through that cigarette.
Yeah.
Have you ever said to yourself in your life, "I just killed to be halfway through a cigarette,"
No.
or "I'd love to be at the end"? Because if it's a nicotine thing, the end of the cigarette's when you've had the nicotine. I'd love to be at the end of a cigarette.
No.
I've just cured my addiction because I've just fed it with what I was after.
Yeah.
That's not true, is it?
No.
It's to do with, it's the fantasy cigarette, if that makes sense. That would you say, perhaps in your own words, that the example when you weren't smoking sounds better?
Yeah.
Yeah, the same as with Christmas, that children are literally more happy without their presents, knowing that they're just about to get them, because their anticipation's coming. They open the presents, they love them perhaps, but then they'll go and play with the box perhaps.
Yeah.
Anticipation is a huge part, and it's to do with this build-up in the imagination. The next two parts, too high and too low. This is the last two triggers of the smoking. If I could really generalise about all of life and say that the only two problems that you can ever have is too much energy and not enough energy. Or if I could say that the only two problems you can have is too much and not enough. The only two solutions you can have in life is more and less. So the idea is, let's say that one of those problems, the too high, you were bored, you were frustrated, you were angry, you wanted to control something. The tension built up so high that the only way to solve it perhaps was to have a cigarette. But at the same time, the too low, perhaps I'm like a zombie today, I've just woken up. If I could just get myself to the kettle, it's a bit of a checkpoint, I'll hit that, then I'll have a cigarette, maybe I'll start to wake up a bit. So it's supposed to be a cure for too low, and it's supposed to be a cure for too high. It doesn't necessarily make sense that it cures either one, because it doesn't. It doesn't give you more energy throughout the day, and it doesn't relieve stress. As we know, it actually raises the heart rate. The too much energy, the too high, the boredom, the frustration, the anger. You don't have what's called a boredom gland. It's not an actual thing within the body. What it is, it's a message to say that the reason you have too much energy is because it belongs somewhere. You've got a craving for something, and you had the fantasy cigarette and it didn't live up to, it became a reality, which you were over it. You're halfway through and you didn't like the cigarette. Boredom is a message to say that perhaps you made a promise to yourself that, you know that promise you made where you said, as soon as I get 5 minutes, I'm going to do that thing. You know that thing you promised yourself that you were going to do? The 5 minutes comes along, and then what happens? You might do the thing. Sometimes you find that you don't necessarily, or you don't always do the thing that you promised yourself to do. Most people tend to say that sometimes they might do that thing, and other times perhaps they won't necessarily do the thing. The idea is that if you've got this boredom, this frustration, this energy, I'd like you to think of it as an energy bank. You've got to spend that energy on the low. The next time that you feel that you can't be bothered doing something, I'd like for you to, not now but later, perhaps at home, I'd like you to write a list of the things that you can't be bothered doing, because that's that backwards button that you have. It's that not enough. It's the feeling of, I just can't be bothered. I've got this big pile. I've gotten to the car on my way to work. It's full of crap, whatever it is. I've got to clean it. I should probably put petrol in it as well. I get to work and people are talking to me, and I hope the first thing someone says to me isn't complex, because I'm just so tired. What I'd like you to do is to write a list of the things that you haven't or you can't be bothered doing, because that's where all the ideas come from of what you'd really like to change. The next time you get the too high energy, the boredom, frustration, what I'd like for you to do is to point that energy, spend the energy on your list, such as perhaps you might be at work sometimes, you might be at home other times. So what I'd like you to do is to find what's the appropriate thing on the list that you can do. That's why you feel that boredom. You can't actually feel boredom unless there was a reason to feel it, which is that there's a thing that you meant to do, but you didn't necessarily do it because you didn't have it written down. Your mind and your body, they always give you, psychologically and physically, all of the energy that you need to fix something not necessarily when you want it, but it gives it to you later. It doesn't always give you the clarity about why that energy was there. The too low, tired, procrastination, these things go together. They almost cure each other, if you could imagine that. If you could, to really generalize anxiety, like say I know there's more to it, and depression as well, anxiety is too much energy. Depression's not enough energy. The person feels that they can't be bothered doing things, they don't want to face the world because they're too low. Up here they're angry. They feel that I want to control everything now, that nothing's right and I'm so stressed. It makes sense that it's a wavelength, it's an energy bank. And I'd like for you to spend your energy bank where it should go. Does that whole thing?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yep. You've got a forward buttons and a backwards button. You don't need to fight those two buttons. Create a balance. So doing a list when you've got too much energy, vent your energy on your list. Cross one item off the list as you go. When you can't be bothered, when you're so tired, write the list of things that you can't be bothered doing, and they'll start to marry up.
Yeah.
You'll actually, through boredom, frustration, anger, by doing one thing on your list, you're actually spending the energy. I know at one point I was delivering flyers. I was mad at something. I had all this energy. I didn't know what to do with it, so I started delivering flyers. And that, for me, it crossed an item off the list. But it also made me feel relaxed, so it actually gave me two benefits. Another time when I was too tired, I couldn't be bothered doing anything, I wrote a list of the things that I couldn't be bothered doing. It gave me two benefits. One is it started to lift me up. Another is that I ended up with a really nice, complete list of things that I need to do. Parts therapy. So we've all heard of Emerson. I really love his work. It just really makes sense. Let's say that you're more complex than an entire whole. You've got all these parts of the mind, they all wish to do positive functions. Every part is a positive part because they all mean to protect you in some way. Let's say that on one side it says it wants to quit smoking, the other side wants to keep smoking. I don't like the idea that there's a good part, which is quit smoking, and a bad part that says keep smoking. What I like to do is to look down the list at what are the benefits of those parts. Health, time out, what else could be perhaps a benefit to either side?
Quit smoking is definitely money.
Money? Yep.
Keep smoking, I actually enjoy it.
So you like enjoyment?
Yeah, socialising.
Yep. So there's a few different parts to it. What I like to think is that while these headings are at the top, this is not a very useful map at all. So we actually need to get rid of the headings. The idea is that what if you had to choose between health and time out?
Health.
Or what if you had to choose between the money that you were spending and health and feeling good? You said you like to feel good, but you like to be healthy.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to choose between those two things. I want to think that both parts want to protect me. They just haven't found a way to do it yet. But they do deserve respect. Those parts do deserve to exist. And this is one of the key points. If we don't recognise that there are benefits to smoking, then we can't replace them with other things. Yeah. So what happened that every time you had one of these needs, you had a cigarette? Every time you had one of those needs, you lectured yourself about, I should just quit smoking. Yeah. So it was, smoke, lecture. And the lecture wasn't helping. The smoking wasn't helping and the lecture wasn't helping. So the idea is, let's get rid of those headings, cooperation of the parts. Some people like to say, something like, say, time out. When you've got that need for time out or the enjoyment, you're out with your friends, you're out drinking, you want something. What do you want? You want enjoyment. During that time, you just want whatever's local enjoyment, whatever's easy, and that had been a cigarette in the past. At the point where you want health, that's when I'd like you to take, instead of lecturing yourself about smoking, because it wasn't reducing the amount of cigarettes you had, during the part that wants health, during the time when you were lecturing yourself about cigarettes, I'd like for you to take conscious responsibility for planning this one. Plan some enjoyment. So do you perhaps have, you don't have to say, but do you have some ideas of fun things that you just hadn't allowed yourself to do because you were busy, you were all these things. But if you don't plan it, then this part starts looking for whatever's local. So I'd like for you to, like say one person said, what if I could go to the gym? Going to the gym helps me with my routine. I love that I go to the gym, helps me with my routine. It also helps me with my daughter who keeps telling me to get off cigarettes. So it's cooperation of the parts, not a fight of the parts. And that's really, if you don't, this is not an intuitive thing. This is not something that you would think about accidentally. It has to basically be a deliberate thought. you do have a feeling, you do have a want, you do have a desire, because that's healthy. You've got your forward and your backwards. They belong in places. And if you haven't worked out exactly what they are, then it's a really good idea to pen to paper. There's something that Anthony Robbins says, and it sounds a bit harsh, but he says that if you don't write your goals down, then you literally don't deserve to achieve them. And I'm thinking, what do you mean I don't deserve to achieve my goals in life? And he said, it's not that you don't deserve to achieve your goals, but if they're so important, aren't they important enough for you to write down? He says that 4% of the planet write their goals down regularly. The other 96% are just helping that 4% to achieve theirs. Thinking on paper is how the subconscious works. I'd like to show you an example of how. What is this? You've got the conscious mind, you've got the subconscious. Your conscious mind understands logic. If I said something to you that was a bit tricky, it'd be your conscious mind that works it out. If I asked you to do something repetitive, it would be the muscle memory, it would be the subconscious that does it. But the interesting thing, what I find really interesting, is that this part doesn't understand logic. It understands your 5 senses. I haven't written taste and smell, but pictures, sounds and feelings perhaps being the most dominant senses. If I put a sentence up that said, should I smoke or should I not smoke? Logically, you would understand they have to be opposites, don't they? However, the subconscious doesn't understand it. If I said to you 2 sentences, one is, can you try as hard as you can to think of the number 3? But then I put the word not in and say it again. Can you try as hard as you can to not think of the number 3? Did you think of the same number both times?
No, I thought of 4 the second time.
So when I say try as hard as you can to not think of the number 3, how did you know that 4 wasn't 3?
Because it came, yeah, you think of 3 first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So very quickly you moved on, but you used that. You
Yeah.
used logic. So the idea is that the subconscious hears, it doesn't hear not, it hears smoke. It hears 3 both times. And because it doesn't understand the not, this is what it hears. What pictures literally does it put in your mind when I said, can you imagine yourself smoking?
All is just the word smokes. I'm dying for one.
Exactly. Can you imagine not red?
No.
There's no such colour as not red. There's blue, green, there's all these different colours, but the word not red doesn't make you not think of red. So you need your language, your self-talk in your head to be what you want it to be without this not word. It's really important. So if I could just ask you, why are you here?
To quit smoking.
What picture does it put in your head when you say quit smoking?
I think of smoking.
Okay, what would you really like?
To smoke right now.
Is that your goal for today?
No.
What's your goal for today?
I don't know how to say it without saying the word smoke.
And the reason is because that's how we all talk. The Australian language is so backwards that we say, how are you and what have you been up to? And we go, not bad, not much. Well, I didn't ask, how aren't you, how haven't you been? So it's not in our habits to actually speak positively. How are you today? I'm good. What you're here for today is health. If we went back to that parts therapy page, you're here for enjoyment and health. That's what you're here for, to completely satisfy all of the parts of the mind. That's basically it. It's not those headings of smoke or not smoking is not helpful. The word not isn't processed. What goes in is literally the pictures, the sounds and the feelings that you think about. So the sentence needs to be, that's why with the calendar, I like you to look at the day 7 as your target. Your first target's day 3. Listening to the CD sets is going to help you to get to day 3. But the words in your head, when you leave here today, what's the first words that you'll need to say in order to get the result you want?
Well, nothing that has the word smoke in it.
Exactly, which could be day 7.
Yeah.
Let's say with drinking. What might you say to yourself? Like say, I'm going to try and not smoke, I'm going to try and not smoke, I'm going to try so hard to not smoke, I'm going to try and not think of cigarettes. It's not a very successful thing to try not to think of cigarettes. What you need to do is like say, what might a bedtime be? If you had some drinks, could it be what, 10 o'clock, 12 or 2?
Say, yeah, it's 12.
12 o'clock, that's your target, 12 o'clock. Let's say you get to 11:30, would you like to have a cigarette then? You're 30 minutes away from being a non-smoker forever. Would you like to have one?
No.
Why not?
Because my target's half an hour away.
Because your target's half an hour away. Your target is 12 o'clock. Let's reverse engineer this all the way back to when might you start your first drink?
Oh, tomorrow it'll be 5:30.
5:30.
Yeah.
So from 11:30, reverse engineer to maybe from 11 o'clock. Would you want a cigarette then? You already know that you wouldn't at 11:30, At 11, would you like one?
No, because it's only an hour away.
Exactly. So does it make sense when you keep saying it's only an hour away,
Yeah.
you have a target?
Yeah.
Your subconscious always meets its target.
Okay.
Doesn't understand that word. Not. The language you say is very important. So this is really the hinge for you. Your goal here today is fun, enjoyment. You want to live. You want to be a happy person and a healthy person at the same time. Use positive words. The conscious mind understands logic. The subconscious, basically, it only understands the 5 senses and repetition. So you've got to repeat it to yourself. It's only an hour away. And you're going to start. Do you feel different? If I said, can I please ask you to say, it's only an hour away?
It's only an hour away.
Yep, versus, I'm going to try not to smoke tonight,
Yeah.
but I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Do you feel different when you say each one?
Yeah.
Physically, almost different?
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't think of it straight away.
Exactly. Has everyone heard of the ideomotor response?
Yeah.
So with the fingers, perhaps? One thing I'd like to do, I've got a slightly different method, but it's still the ideomotor response. I'd just like to see how you respond to suggestion.
Okay.
So I'd like to get you just sitting there.
Yeah.
I'd like to get you to hold this out here. Just to keep your feet further in. And just looking at it, I'd like for it to swing, but I don't want for you to do it. I'd like for you to keep your fingers and your hands still. So if you could please just look at the pen. So the pen's swinging towards you in a way, not to mean to do anything. You're not meaning to move anything, are you?
No.
So as your eyes can just follow the pen, almost as if I've got a magnet that's just pulling the pen. It's pulling the phone over this way and then towards you. There we go. So you're not meaning to make that move?
No.
I'd just like to show you the difference. If I just start moving this towards the sides, towards the left and the right, the left and the right, the left and the right. There we go. So we're starting to get a left and right response. It's not moving very much. I want it to move so that I can really see it. The idea is it's going to depend on the words you say in your head.
Okay.
Your fine motor control is controlled by your imagination, not by your decisions, but by your imagination. If you could just lift a little bit higher. Maybe if you could hold it from here. I'd just like for everyone to be able to see this, and then just to put that over there. So just looking at the phone, just to turn it so that the screen faces you. Yep. And then just imagining left and right. Left and right. Left and right. Now we just ask it to move towards you and towards me. And you're not meaning to do that?
No.
Now I can start to see that. That's better. Everyone's going to be thinking, what was that before? All right. I'm going to calibrate it and say that towards you and away is a yes.
Okay.
Towards the sides is no response.
Okay.
So, do you have 6 feet at the end of your ankles? Left and right is a no. Is that a left and right? Yeah. That's all right. So that's a no. You don't have 6 feet. Do you have 2 feet? Towards you and away is a yes.
Oh,
Excellent.
God.
So have you seen that before?
No.
A lot of people during pregnancy they use a pendulum.
Yeah. Boys and girls.
Yeah, boys and girls. Is it a boy? Is it a girl?
Yeah.
What this is ideomotor response. It's from the brain to the nerve, the muscle to the phone. Your muscle doesn't care where it gets its message. But this is basically just subconscious communication. What if I ask now, does your subconscious agree to support you in all that you do? And does it allow to take conscious responsibility that the next time you feel the need for health, to take conscious responsibility for your fun? You deserve to have a good time, that you're a person who likes to have fun. Does it agree to allow the cigarettes to disappear into the past forever? Excellent. Now, just before the arm gets too heavy, I'll be very quick.
I wouldn't believe that if I wasn't doing it myself.
It is incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just... Sorry if I was sitting in the way. But basically, it's just swinging the way we're asking it to. So I can sit away now that we've got it. This time, I'd like for you to keep saying to yourself, don't do a circle, don't do a circle. Keep saying it, don't do a circle, don't do a circle. Why is it doing a circle? So we've said don't do one. Why is it doing one?
Because we've said the word circle.
Because we've said the word circle, but we said don't.
Yeah.
So the subconscious doesn't understand the word don't?
No.
Would you call this perhaps instant proof that the words you say are important?
Yeah.
When you walk out of here today, what are you going to say?
I'm going to show everyone this because I honestly wouldn't believe it if I
Exactly.
wasn't doing it. Wow. Very cool.
Okay.
Excuse me, Scott, do you do that with each client?
Yes. It'll work with everybody. Sometimes you have to persist. It's really important to get that right because it does buy a lot of credibility when they can see something. It's an iPhone. It's an old... It's already broken. I've got a different iPhone now. That's not how it broke. That's not how it got broken. But it's basically it's a really quick thing. You can do that with anybody. That's right. A couple of facts. I don't really cover many facts on the cigarettes themselves with the client. I concentrate on the behaviour. I concentrate on the mind. I've got a couple in here, like cigarettes, they do contain over 1,000 substances. Nicotine raises the heart and blood pressure. That's really the part that, the addictive substance. It's not necessarily the worst part of it. If it was just that, it'd be a little bit different. The carbon monoxide starves the body of oxygen. The tars stimulate cancer. Smoking kills. Mainly it's because of this part, the 1,000 substances. There's stuff in there that you don't want to know about. Things that are used in pesticides, chemicals which are similar to the execution chambers. Like seriously, those things are in there. It helps make it more addictive.
Yeah.
Very quickly, we don't have a lot of time, but I just want to cover. So you remember the pictures, sounds, and feelings. The subconscious doesn't understand logic. There's some very quick techniques that you can use with a client. Pictures. See yourself as a non-smoker. Get them to commit to the language of seeing themselves as a person who doesn't smoke, such as, I'm focusing on 12 o'clock. That is the language of a person who's going to succeed. That, I don't know, I'm going to try, I'll see how I go, is not the language of a person that's going to succeed. Talk to yourself as a non-smoker. So the pictures could be, it's got to be a picture. You can see, if there's a negative image that you don't like, ask your client to put it into a frame. Lose the colour, it's black and white. It's very hard to see the image in colour again once you've put it in black and white, and then it starts to lose its power. Shrink it down, throw it away, repeat the process quickly, repetitively, until the subconscious gets it. The same as you didn't learn to drive by doing it once. You learn to drive, not by being a genius, but you learn to drive by repeating it so many times. The self-talk and the feelings. Which part of the body contains the craving? Generally, once I ask this question, everybody basically points to these top two parts, or this one especially. That when I say, where's the craving? They say, well, it's in my head. Or they'll point to themselves and say, oh, I just had a craving. Well, where was the craving? Was it in the chest? No. Was it in the body? Oh, no, it's in the head. Do you mean the muscles in the head? Do you feel something physically in the head? No. Then what is it? So out of your 5 senses, the only channels there are for a craving has to be pictures, sounds, feelings, tastes, and smells. It'll always come back to this one. The words you say create the movement. Alrighty. The actual demonstration. Okay. So have you done hypnotherapy before?
Yeah.
Yep. So there's nothing that you really need to do at the moment. There's basically there's like these 3 states: awake, asleep, daydreaming. You might find yourself aware that I'm talking the whole time, but you won't necessarily be aware of the contents. Everything that I say is also going to be on the CD sets. So again, you don't have to worry about remembering everything. You're going to get one of these and everything's going to be on there. What I'd like to get you to do after today, you've got 2 jobs. One is to tick each day as you go. The other is to listen to the CD sets. Okay. Do you have something to play these on?
Yeah.
Yep. So if you could listen to that one tonight and that one tomorrow night, then keep alternating for a week until you come back. The listening to the CD set creates the repetition. It uses positive language, which helps, like with the phone, the way it moved. If you were going to play darts, what should you say? I'm going to hit the wall. I always hit the wall. Or bullseye.
The target. Yeah.
Exactly. So your 2 jobs is to tick and listen. Tick the calendar as you go. Listen to this. And let's start the hypnotherapy.
Okay.
Sure.
Can I keep the chair out?
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually don't spend as much time on the hypnotherapy as I do on that first explanation. So what I've done there is, it's probably very different from what a lot of people have done. I find it works really well because I've covered so much material, and then I've got that middle point of the idiomotor response. They're already in sort of a form of compliance because they've seen something they haven't seen before. Or if they've seen it slightly, they haven't really done it themselves, or they haven't seen it work that way. This next part I do very simple. I just really do a basic hypnotherapy induction. The therapy part, we concentrate on the targets, which is day 7. So if you'd just like to close your eyes, take a deep breath. That's all right, just taking all of the time that you need. And just very slowly from the top of the head all the way down to the tips of the toes. The same way that phone moved through suggestion. I'd just like for you to allow that each muscle is just going to relax so slowly that you can't even notice how slowly it happens. Just imagining that there's this gentle wave of relaxing energy, and it's going to start to fall very slowly all the way down to the tips of the toes. To do it quickly would do nothing. All of the power of relaxation comes from how slowly that gentle wave continues to fall. Just all the way down the eyes. And just those small muscles around the eyes as they allow themselves to relax even more slowly again. Just by noticing them, they find that they relax more and more, the more slowly that gentle wave falls all the way down to the jaw. As the muscles in the jaw, as they connect further up to the temples allow themselves to relax twice as deep, the more slowly the muscles for the jaw let go of the temples. Twice as slow again, taking even more time, and twice as slow again, as that gentle wave of relaxing energy, it continues all the way down, from the neck to the shoulders. The shoulders will just rise and fall just like that, automatically. They'll just rise and fall, just by themselves, that you don't need to do anything. The body knows exactly what to do. As that gentle wave of relaxing energy continues from the upper arms all the way down to the lower arms. Just all the way down from the hands, just more and more relaxed as the muscles for the fingers that connect further up the arms, that the more slowly the muscles for the fingers relax and let go, the more deeply, the more heavy the arms become, just allowing the fingers to relax twice as slow again as they let go of the arms, as that gentle wave of relaxing energy just continues all the way down through the fingers, just so slow and so calm that we can't even notice how slowly. It just allows itself to continue to drift. It just allows itself to continue to float as the tips of the fingers and the thumbs relax. And that gentle wave of relaxing energy continues just all the way down from the front of the body and the sides, the upper back around the shoulders, slowly letting go, just so slow and so calm, just through to the middle and the lower back, twice as slow again as that gentle wave continues all the way down from the upper legs to the lower legs, just allowing that the body knows exactly what to do as that gentle wave of relaxing energy continues through the legs, from the ankles to the heels, just so slow and so calm that we can't even notice how slowly. It just allows itself to let go into the background. From the sole of each foot, the ball of each foot, and the tips of the toes. Relax just so slow. Just like that. As the entire body just allows itself to continue to drift, floating gently. And any thoughts allow themselves to play dancefully into the background, just automatically, just like a cloud that floats from very far away, just gently into the sky as it slowly fades away, twice as slow, taking even more time again to drift as the sun that continues to set over the beach, just so slow and so calm. The more slowly it sets, the more relaxed it becomes, as the feet that brush past the sand and into the water slowly, and those gentle waves that just roll over the feet and between the toes, just so slow and so calm, as the reflection of the sun just continues to shimmer in the background, drifting towards the horizon. That gentle sea breeze that can be heard, that can be felt on the skin, relaxing twice as slow. That gentle path that leads to your cabin, as the door opens and allows you inside, to where time itself seems to slow, just so slow and so calm that we can't even notice how slowly. From that beautiful bay window, as the last of the sun seems to set into the background, just very slowly, just like a candle being dipped into water, all the way down. And just like that, these 10 beautiful stairs inside that lead all the way down to your unconscious control room of mind, just the relaxation room where you allow yourself to re-energize calmly and gently, just your personal space where you allow space to exist. From the 10th stair, just twice asleep with each stair, just so slow and so calm, all the way down to the 9th stair, just so slow and so calm, drifting, floating to the 8th and to the 7th, all the way down to the 6th, twice asleep again, to the 5th, to the 4th stair, just very slowly, all the way down to the 3rd, to the 2nd stair, just slowly, twice as slow with each stair, to the 1st, comfortably into the room, as the control chair that just allows every muscle to relax, twice as slow again, just allows itself to do everything for you, as there's that mirror on the wall, as it shows your future in 7 days, and just easily and comfortably, as you find yourself at the end of day 7, as you come back and you give me the good news, that you imagine yourself telling me the good news, rewinding all the way back to day 6, 5, day 4, to the last 4 days, and that's fine. Just allowing yourself to relax. That the last 4 days just allow themselves to happen all by themselves. You've already achieved 3 days, the day 4, day 5, 6 and 7, and you know that you're coming back to give me the good news. You remember how you focused on 12 o'clock. It was only 60 minutes away. You achieved your target. You kept saying to yourself, it's only 1 hour away. You used positive language. That anything that you keep saying becomes a behavior. And the mind automatically repeats it for you after the first week. Just rewinding all the way back from day 3, day 2 and day 1, that you found yourself getting through day 1, day 2 and day 3, just easily as then day 4, 5, 6 and 7 just happened all by themselves. Just noticing that first night with alcohol. You've got this desire to have fun. You deserve to have fun. Just imagining yourself allowing that part of the mind that would like to have fun, that fun's been prepared for it by the other part of the mind that would like to have health, that it took conscious responsibility for your fun. And just imagining the part of the mind that's interested in health, that it found that lecturing didn't actually reduce how many cigarettes the fun part of the mind had. So instead, the healthy part of the mind decided to fulfill the fun part. It decided to plan a fun event. It decided to prioritize that you're important, that you're a very important person, as the health of your lungs, your heart, as the bloodstream continues to clean itself, and you find that you're having more and more fun. That what you get out of today is more than health. It's the ability to have fun inside of that health, to be able to enjoy it comfortably, focusing on the positive target, that the words you say are ultimately important, that they create suggestions, that you have the power to allow your self-talk to be positive self-talk, to allow yourself to ask yourself positive questions. What do I really want? What really creates fun for me? I deserve to have fun. I like to have fun. And there's very healthy ways to have even more fun again. Is that every day, in every way, your life continues to become better and better. And just very slowly as I count from 1, just all the way up to 5, just taking all of the time that you need. And just taking all the time, just 1, energy, vitality, just returning to your arms and to your legs. Just noticing where your arms, where your legs are in the room. 3 and 4, heart rate, vitality. Just returning to that which is healthy and normal for you. You've done very well. Thank you. Just 4 and 5, just allow yourself, just slowly. Excellent. How do you feel?
Yeah, good. The mobile phone threw me a little bit, I have to say. Sorry.
That's okay. I find in the place where I work, there's noises that happen all the time. And the more you do the hypnotherapy with the sounds, the more you get used to it. That it's not the sound, it's the reaction to the sound. It's been trained to say, I want total silence. After a while, you find that self-talk that says, I have to have total silence. It's not a helpful sentence, if that makes sense. But it's understandable that you want to have a very good experience. So the idea is to focus on, I want to have a very good and positive experience. And then you find that, I mean, I had one client who asked me to turn my clock off. It was ticking. I refused to turn it off. But thank you. If you'd like to take a seat.
Thank you.
Okay. Pay to stare at the packet. If you can imagine someone's got that packet of cigarettes and they're holding it over the bin, does it get easier or harder to throw it away? Harder. Is there any benefit at all in waiting? No. The idea just, they get rid of it and it becomes easy. Generally what happens is they throw it in my bin there in my actual clinic. Only action is going to make it happen. What I find to be the most important parts of how to get a person off smoking is you need a target. That target needs to be their self-talk, and the self-talk needs to be phrased positively. So why did the phone do a circle when we said don't do a circle?
There's a negative in there.
Exactly. Your subconscious is successful. All it knows how to do is obey what you keep repeating. And if you repeat what you don't want, that's what you'd get. So you've got to repeat to yourself what you want. And if you don't know exactly 100% what it is that you want, ask yourself a positive question. Say, there's a feeling of aha, cheeky moment, whatever it is that I want to have. It's okay to be at that point, because if you can ask yourself that question, your subconscious has to answer it. If not today, tomorrow morning or one day you'll wake up with more ideas about how do I do that, or something's going to start to happen in your life that will start to bring that moment in for you. Sorry, yep, microphone.
I'm just wondering how you handle triggers, especially smell, when people leave and they've gone through a session, and then they go out to the car,
Yep.
and the car reeks of cigarettes,
Yep.
and they're re-triggered again. I'm wondering how you handle that, because
Yep.
that's just bringing it all back to them again, bringing it back to the senses.
Somebody asked me once, I used to smoke out of my veranda. Should I avoid going out to my veranda where my ashtray is, where my cigarettes are? Besides asking why do you still have cigarettes and ashtrays out there, I said, do you plan to ever go out there ever again? Usually the answer is yes. They don't board up that part of the house. They do mean to go back. They have to go there at least once. Once they've done it once, they've got a bit of a memory, a bit of a history that they've been out there one time. It re-triggers a new memory engram. A memory engram is you living through a moment being recorded. So that smell starts to become a new memory engram. Let's say they go to their car and it smells like cigarettes. That used to mean smoke. Now what it means is that my car smells bad. And then you can imagine after 6 months of them going, I can smell cigarettes, it becomes, oh, this smells bad. It becomes a different habit. So that's where the habit parts, each habit is different. The coffee, the tea habit doesn't cure the drinking habit. You've got to do them separately. You've got to do each one with enough repetitions that it works.
So you would actually incorporate into your hypnotherapy that you can now is a different experience.
Yep.
Because you know what they're going to do when they get to that car.
Yep.
The car's going to stimulate them, so now the experience is a different experience. So
Yeah.
that's what you're suggesting.
Build the scene with pictures, sounds, feelings, tastes and smells, if you like.
Okay.
The more of it that you build,
Sure.
yeah. The more, the subconscious is following those 5 senses. It doesn't care about right or wrong.
Yes.
It doesn't know what that is. Your conscious mind does. We hope it does. The subconscious understands repetition and suggestion. They're the only 2 languages of the subconscious, repetition and suggestion. The suggestion is 5 senses. They're your languages of suggestion. So if they keep repeating something, it becomes more dominant than the other. Your behaviour there was a formula of think, feel, do. If you could imagine that for every 10 thoughts you produce a feeling, and then for every 10 feelings you produce a behaviour, you would have to have that thought be 100 thoughts of the same thought for it to become a behaviour. But then it does. It starts to build a new normality. What you were craving wasn't necessarily that the trigger has to be, let's say, what you were craving was routine. You like things to be the same day after day. After enough time, it is routine. They do have everything they wanted, which was routine.
Hi, I just want to ask, I just quit smoking, I think it was a month ago, and it was via hypnotherapy as well, but I was like a student in the chair and it was a demonstration. They didn't hit my target as in like my triggers, being the fact that now I eat a lot. So in saying that, when you were doing that, how would you actually handle somebody who's
Eats.
Yeah, who's doing that? Because I'm doing that, and that's really a problem for me. So I've quit smoking, which is great, and I don't stink anymore, but, I'm spending all my extra money on food.
So we can go back to that parts therapy.
Yeah.
The parts therapy is that you had a part that wanted to do something.
Yeah.
You got rid of the cigarettes,
Yeah.
but it still wants to do something. What does it really want to do?
Yeah, it doesn't have that time, so it actually takes that time and goes, oh, well, you don't have that time to do that, but I'll eat because I've got like little miniature times. So it's like, oh, eating's good for that.
The idea is that you, if you don't give that energy another outlet, it's going to find one, which it did.
Yeah.
The idea is you need to plan, where would you like that energy to be? If you could find sort of in your life, where's that procrastination? Where's that pile that I haven't finished of things to do? If you start breaking that pile down into parts and start feeding jobs to it, that craving is going to want to come out as, it doesn't care if it's cigarettes, it doesn't care if it's eating, and it doesn't care if it's a positive getting things done. But it does care about that it has to come out. So the idea is if you can plan in advance, what's a thing that you haven't finished? That energy, the next time it comes out, it can start to channel itself into getting up to date on things.
But do you find that you have clients coming back in saying, I have taken my smoking away and I am now eating a whole lot more? Do
No.
you know?
That's
Really?
part of,
Wow. Okay.
with what I cover. I try to touch on everything. Generally, like say, in front of less people, it can be a bit difficult in front of a whole crowd. There tends to be a lot more interaction with the other person. And so that way it tends to be much of an more organic conversation between two people. Through that, they tell me, if they have a fear of it happening, they tell it to me straight away. Then I ask them, before we really move on with the session, where would you like that energy to be? Then they come back and they say, I stopped smoking, I started reading books. Or that I stopped and I went to the gym. The gym's a really popular one. But they always come back and say that I did something. So we design the something.
Thank you.
That's okay. Yep, sorry. Just over here, please. The microphone.
Do you treat everyone for quit smoking that comes to see you, or there's some people that just aren't ready? They think they're ready, but after meeting with you, they're really not ready.
There's not 100% of people, and what I tend to find is that it's they're not interested in following another person's instructions. The ready or not ready to quit smoking seems not to be an issue. It's that are they willing to actually... It's an ego thing, if that makes sense.
Yep.
If they follow the instructions, they'll quit smoking.
Okay.
If they feel that they don't want to follow someone else's instructions, if they try to change your program, then they're not going to quit smoking.
Right.
That basically what I do, I stick to my guns.
Sure.
I also do the counselling part where I do go with them, but I make sure that we always come back to my framework. And the tighter I keep to my framework, the more easily they get off cigarettes.
So there's definitely some people that have gone away without having the session because they're just...
Very few. It happens very rarely that a person will basically not quit smoking. And you can tell through the session, it's if they're just bluntly arguing with you that they're not going to get any benefit out of it.
Yeah.
It's when they go along with you, and you'll recognise it through the session. If they're going to just argue, give them the choice and say, what do you want to do?
Another question as well.
Yeah, that's right.
You know the test you did with the mobile phone?
Yep.
Does everyone complete that test satisfactorily?
Yep, most people quickly. Occasionally somebody might take up to like 2 or 3 minutes, but it's pretty rare that it generally happens straight away.
Right.
And it's a really good convincer for people. They see it. Pretty much almost everyone that I've seen as a client hasn't seen that. It's a little bit rare that you'll see someone they've seen it for another purpose, or they've seen it for is the baby a boy or a girl, perhaps.
What do you use the phone? Why don't you use a pendulum?
I could use anything. You could use anything that you want.
Is it because if you use a pendulum, they think, oh, he's a bit weird?
Anything works.
Anything. I mean, I wasn't comfortable using a pendulum.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's to do like when I started hypnotherapy that I was thinking, I was getting people ask, it could be friends, could be clients to begin with, are you going to make me cluck like a chook? So I was starting to get all those stage questions. And so I just wanted to steer as far away from where I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah. That's something you've always got on there.
It's a broken phone. It's there in the clinic just for that purpose. I use, yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay.
If I can just...
Sorry.
I'd like to give some really positive feedback to you. I've been actually using this technique with my smokers for 3 months now, and I've been very successful. Every single one who I still keep tabs on has given up, except one, and he's cut down from 2 packets a day to about 5 cigarettes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, it's been fantastic. So yeah.
So what would your second session, the 7-day session, involve? Just more positive reinforcement, dealing with any kind of extra triggers that come up?
I do very little in the second session. Sometimes they're out within, say, 30 or 40 minutes in the second session.
Right.
They tend to be quite happy. I do follow them up. I give them a call once a week for a month, so they know that's been 6 weeks. It tends to be like almost like a congratulations session. They come back, they tell me, would you believe it, I'm off the cigarettes, and they'll tell you about, people always called me the smoker. I was the smoker amongst my friends.
So would you still do hypnosis in that second session?
Yep, I
Just
do.
ego strengthening or positive reinforcement or something?
Just a positive hypnotherapy session. In it, basically, I'd say something along the lines of "You've done really, really well." I give them credit in the actual hypnotherapy, but I do very little in the second session. But I find that having the second session is very important because they need to come back. If they know they're coming back, then they're accountable. That target in the head, like that self-talk that I've got to keep doing it, they know I'm going to give them a hard time on the second session if they didn't quit smoking. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
Just from a hypnotherapist point of view or NLP practitioner, what do you recommend in terms of charging your patients or your clients?
My program, I do 2 sessions of hypnotherapy and the 2-disc CD set for $360. I also offer a $60 discount for payment on the first day.
Fantastic.
I find if you're going to offer a discount, have a reason.
Yes.
Don't just say, was this, now that, because it sounds silly.
Yes.
It's for payment on the first session because that means less
absolutely.
administration for me. And then it sounds credible to them as well.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That's okay.